Hey guys, it's Girl Got Game. Welcome back to Hakuoki Edo Blossoms, where we are finally going to be on our final boy, basically. Anyway, Demon Hubby hype time! I can't wait to see how this is gonna go, so let's hop into it. Last boy, yes! This again, achievement unlocked. Oh, look at him! I can't wait to find out why he's got a new outfit in this route. There's so many things I'm looking forward to seeing. I just can't even express. I do remember that he and Chizuru got along surprisingly well when he wasn't trying to kidnap her. And what I'm really hoping from his route is her coming to the most acceptance of her demon heritage out of all the routes. Because that's something I've really wanted to see from her. Is just be like, it's not a terrible thing. I'm not actually a monster. And also helping him to see that not all humans are terrible either. So I want to see that. And because he's proper noble demon, and not fake demon, we won't get any bloodless episodes, but Sano did get a kink, so Chikage might get a kink. I have hopes. Okay, I have wholesome hopes. Wouldn't it be great if Chikage's kink was hugs? Because he always goes to wrap his arm around her to kidnap her, but what if it's like a shared, like, consensual hug kind of thing? I'd like to think he's a hugger. So that's my wholesome kink prediction for Chikage. Spicy kink prediction. Maybe he can be my Lyato. Maybe? Leg area? Maybe? I don't know. Wouldn't it be crazy if we got fun times with Chikage? Oh my goodness, I can't wait. Anyway, I've yacked long enough. Let's actually get into this. Winter 1864. In order to find my father, with whom I'd lost contact, I, Chizuru Yukimura, visited Kyoto. In that city, I bore witness to a horrifying secret hidden within a group called the Shinsengumi. The Fury, a creature with white hair and crimson eyes. Luckily, I was saved from the vicious clutches of the Furies by the members of the Shinsengumi. Because I had discovered the Shinsengumi's secrets, it was proposed that I live with the Shinsengumi men since they were also searching for my father. I was given the position as the commander's page, and thus my life with the Shinsengumi began. I'd heard rumors, well whispers really, that the Shinsengumi were little more than a bunch of crooked ronin, but my life with them proved otherwise. Their commitment to protect the safety of Kyoto made them the last of a dying breed, true samurai. It set them apart from those who only craved power. There he is. It was during this time that a group of demons, led by a figure named Chikage Kazuma, emerged, standing in opposition to the Shinsengumi. Kazuma had singled me out, revealing to me the presence of demon blood flowing through my veins, in the interest of abducting me to become his bride. I also hope we see Shiranui and Amigiri. I want to have more of them, too, in this route. The tug and pull of the demon's relentless pursuit revealed itself to be quite the tense struggle. At the time, the fate of the shogunate was threatened by the Satsuma Choshu, which later culminated in an inevitable battle for control of the nation. See? Kind of a hug thing, maybe. During this battle, later known as the Battle of Tobufushimi, I found myself hopelessly separated from the Shinsengumi, only to be rescued by Kazuma. Unfortunately, victory was unanimously declared in favor of the Satsuma Choshu, much to my despair. In a show of desperate abandon, the Shinsengumi retreated back to Edo with their remaining forces. With the aid of Kazuma, I embarked on the trip back to Edo in search of the Shinsengumi, making my way back to the city I used to call home. I didn't realize you were searching for the Shinsengumi. I understood that you were going to go deal with your dad and sister brother, and you were going to be, like, helping Kazuma do that, because he's like, I gotta go do this. That just reminded me, there was a truce between the demons, right? I think Sen called us all together for, like, a powwow, and Amigiri was there, and Shiranui was there, too, and you too, Toto. But yeah, they all, like, met together and we're like, we need to deal with this. And Cosmo's basically my bodyguard, I think? He's still trying to go for that whole husband-wife thing. I don't think Chizuru's having it yet. Not today, demon! Achievement unlocked. Amazing. Alright. Early winter, 1868. Intensifying tensions between the shogunate army and the Satsuma Choshu were reaching their limits. Thus, the battle at Tobufushimi erupted in Kyoto. The Shinsengumi had been honorably tasked with the order of guarding the Fushimi magistrate, but upon witnessing the Satsuma Choshu's devastating firepower, much of which had been purchased by Western arm dealers, the Shinsengumi was forced to retreat. In the ensuing chaos of the magistrate's evacuation, I was separated from the Shinsengumi, isolated amidst a sea of bullets and cannons firing overhead. I fled helplessly to the outskirts of Kyoto, taking refuge in the vast forest until a traitorous band of ex-shogunate soldiers discovered me, where Kazuma, who arrived at the scene coincidentally, saved me from their dastardly clutches. It was in this time that I reunited with Father, or as others know him, Kodo Yukimura, as well as my estranged twin brother, Kaoru Nagamo. But there was a very different air about Father, and he was no longer the man I once loved dearly. He synthesized a serum called the Water of Life, which was commissioned by the Satsuma Choshu Alliance in the interest of toppling the shogunate handily. To my abject horror, my father and brother revealed that a new accelerated fury was in production, making them twice as powerful and with fewer weaknesses. For the Shinsengumi, it was unknown how they would fare against this imminent threat, when more immediate concerns were looming over the horizon. Kazuma and I rode on horseback, quickly chasing after the Shinsengumi towards Osaka Castle. Alright, apparently we're going there. Once we arrived, there was a small chorus of demons awaiting us, and we were reunited with Sen, Kimigiku, Amagiri, and Shiranui. Okay, so I do remember that correctly. The thick air of mystery surrounding Kazuma, as well as the rest of the demons, fascinated me, and there was so much for me to learn about them. Sen is the one who advised that we head to Edo to find the Shinsengumi, and so we set off once more, hoping that our trip would not be too arduous. And I do remember Kazuma thinking ahead and getting a horse for this girl so she didn't have to trek all the way there for once. So that was nice. Well, this is a spoopy beginning. The wind gently caressed my cheeks on our route to Edo, singing its hushed song through the pines. A thick fog enveloped the mountain road, covering the rows of trees ahead. The fresh scent of dew cupped on the leaves hit our noses immediately. The Tokaido was still under shogunate jurisdiction. For Kazuma, who had been strongly affiliated with the Satsuma, this was enemy territory. In order to avoid being detected and engaging in unnecessary violence, we had no choice but to abandon our horse and travel down an off-trail path. Dang it. My mind had been elsewhere, focused on the hope that the rest of the Shinsengumi had arrived safely. I was plagued with a haunting vision, one in which some members hadn't survived, left to suffer alone in the battlefield as their life faded atop the cinders. My arms and legs were scraped by the scattering of branches sticking into the path, as my eyes struggled to make out anything in the impenetrable darkness. This is when Chikage's like, activate your demon vision, girl. I ignored my cuts, choosing to push forward instead.
Calm down for a moment, would you? At this pace, you are only going to overexert yourself well before we reach an inn.
I appreciate your concern, but if we want to get to Edo as soon as possible, then we need to be quick about it.
Well, it isn't going to happen simply because you will it. Tonight we rest here. Your Supreme Commander, Lord Yoshinobu Takagawa, has already embarrassed you all with his surrender. Although it wouldn't surprise me, given how painfully obtuse those serving in the shogunate can be, I believe it will be some time until they are prepared to stage another large-scale battle. Without a war to fight, Kodo will have no master to give his bone, thus stifling any of his plans. So, quit your incessant rushing. Nothing you do now will be of any consequence later.
What Kazuma argued made a lot of sense. Yep. Or, more likely, because I had been aggressively jaunting through rough, dimly lit terrain, my feet were swollen, throbbing to the point that taking another step might cause me to topple over.
As luck would have it, I believe I see a deserted house over there. Why don't we take a look inside?
Okay. Its dilapidated exterior gave me the frights, but nevertheless I followed behind Kazuma's lead. Okay. The house itself was very modest in size. A fine film of dust covered every inch of the floor, giving me the impression that it had been vacated ages ago. Is it really okay for the two of us to waltz into this house unannounced? You're not proper vampires, you don't have to be invited in.
I would sooner call this a hut than a house. Rather austere, isn't it? It is obvious, though, that no one lives here, so surely no one will mind. Or go ahead and sleep outside if you'd like. I guarantee you that you'll be frozen by morning.
Although the thought of intruding upon someone's house somewhat unsettled me. There was no way I could die out here. Not before I discovered the whereabouts of my father and brother and thwarted their evil plans. Fortunately, Kazuma found a room with some dingy bedding arrangements, so at the very least I wouldn't freeze like he suggested. Kazuma's eyes darted around the room attentively, and he stepped towards a sunken fireplace, lowering himself to take a pinch of old soot between his fingers. Being alone in this derelict house with him was nerve-wracking, although I didn't want to admit it. How long have you guys been alone? Because I know you rode a horse, so you probably made some good time with that, but... Without anything to contribute to the conversation, I kept my silence, watching him examine the fireplace. Kazuma's eyes thinned as he stroked his chin calmly. After a moment, he reached his hand into his pocket, taking from it pieces of flint to try to start a fire. Kazuma? If you're trying to start a fire, I can do it.
Just shut up and sit tight. This will warm us soon enough.
But isn't building a fire a little bit more difficult than that? Back when I lived in Edo with my father, or even when I lived with the Shinsengumi, it was rare that we would need to build a fire from scratch. More often than not, we could rely on the hospitality of our neighbors to provide materials when they were unavailable.
Yes, building a fire can be quite difficult. But only a human would shy away from difficulty. It is in their miserable nature.
Kazuma held each piece of flint in his hands, clapping them together in a swift motion to produce sparks. Once more, he reached into his pocket, pulling from it a piece of parchment to use as kindling over the small sunken fireplace, then continued to clap the flint. Wow, how resourceful. After a few more seconds, the sparks turned into embers over the parchment. Kazuma blew air into the flame, creating a fire where one hadn't been for ages. Although Kazuma was the one who'd suggested that the two of us rest for the night in this dingy house, he hadn't looked exhausted in the slightest. Perhaps, I wondered, he was only suggesting that we rest for my sake, which made me blush.
Come a little closer to the fireplace. You're shivering.
Oh, okay! I did as he instructed and approached him beside the fire, extending my hands over it for warmth. My hands, which had become numb from the cold, wintry night, were tingly as feeling returned. Our first picture already? Heck yeah! Kazuma, you spoil me. A shadow twisted and flickered upon Kazuma's stoic face as he gazed quietly at the flame. I realized while staring at Kazuma that there wasn't much of anything that I knew about him, let alone the history of his people or where he came from. Yeah, you guys gonna have more conversations, because that was one of my favorite things about you guys. Just philosophizing. Did I even say that correctly? Philosophizing? Is that how you say it? Together. You know what I mean. Bleh. To me, they were simply demons who were ideologically and politically opposed from the Shinsengumi. And that, as a demon woman, I was their target. This was the extent of my knowledge, as his people had enshrouded themselves in secrecy for generations, so much so that even I had no idea I was a demon. All I knew was that Chikage Kazuma, Kyujo Amagiri, and Kiyoshiro Nui were all fierce, cunning warriors. Everything else was a complete enigma to me. Kazuma? Would you mind sharing some stories with me about our people? About the demons? Our people. Wow! She's already come so far.
Where did this come from?
If what you, Sen, my father, and my brother all said was true, then I too am part of the demon clan, right? But I can't help but feel so disconnected from it all. I have no idea where demons came from, how long they've been around, or what they even are. That's why I wanted to know more about myself, and about all of you, too. I was staring straight into Kazuma's face, watching his scarlet eyes fixate on the fireplace scornfully. For a moment he was silent, until he begrudgingly turned his face in my direction. Or his eyes.
I'm not a historian. I don't know how the demons came to be, nor when they decided to settle in this country. But one thing I know for sure is... the cycle of strife and bloodshed between demons and humans is a tale as old as time.
Uh-huh. Alright, we got our Beauty and the Beast reference going already. Even if it wasn't, you know, that way inclined at all, but you know, I'll take it anyway.
We demons will never lose to a human if it is a one-on-one duel, but... what humans have that we do not is the gift of numbers. A tiger may be the toughest hunter in the jungle, but there is a limit to how much prey it can hunt. Human greed, however, has no limit. Thus, demons decided to exile themselves as a measure against the destructive force of humans. Some demons, however, chose to resist the stain of inferiority encroaching upon our lands. Their resistance proved futile. In the end, the humans exterminated them without remorse. If you were ever told the legends or folk tales of demons in the past, this is where their legend bears its origin. Some of them, those that survived at least, are still alive, living in the shadows all across this country.
I wondered to myself how the demon clans might have coped with being driven into hiding. Listening to Kazuma speak of his people's history so coldly raised so many questions for me. I feel like he wouldn't really know about the Yukimura clan. Whereas this in particular, this kind of involves him a little bit more. It's a little more personal interest in him. I'll try that. Kazuma, you mentioned something about how many of the demon clans went into isolation to disappear from human society. What compelled you to associate with the Satsuma Choshu and oppose the Shinsengumi? It was peculiar that Kazuma would violate this self-imposed exile when the rest of our kind was in hiding. Re-entering human society as a force of reckoning in the middle of a heavily politicized conflict rang out as especially strange to me. Kazuma was expressionless, thinning his eyes slightly in reaction to my question.
There is nowhere left to hide for us. Nowhere left to run. Nowhere untainted by the curse of humanity.
What?
The average human knows nothing of our existence. unlike the domain leaders and cultural elites, who have been well acquainted with our people for ages. 2 centuries ago, during the Warring States period, some of the warlords and daimyo approached our people, successfully currying favor with those willing to share their demon powers with mankind. One such example, Chizuru Yukimura, was your clan.
What?
During the Battle of Sekigahara, it was your ancestors who aided Ieyasu Takagawa in his campaign to usurp control of this country with military force.
That's interesting. The Battle of Sekigahara was one of the most important battles in our country's history, signifying the pivotal shift of power into the Takagawa shogunate's hands. To think that my ancestors had a hand in influencing the battle's outcome astounded me.
The Kazuma and Amagiri clans realized the threat posed by Takagawa and allied with his enemies. Our current allegiance with the Satsuma Choshu is simply a continuation of our previous arrangement.
Interesting.
Shiranui, on the other hand, appears to be serving the Choshu with intentions that are unknown to me. However, this shall be the last time our people involve ourselves with paltry concerns of human conflict. The Satsuma are no longer dependent on our aid either, since they have been more than successful in toppling the shogunate's regime.
My mind suddenly went to the thought of the Shinsengumi men and my eyes fell to the floor. The flame continued to crackle, punctuating the silence floating between Kazuma and me.
We start early tomorrow morning. Perhaps it would be better for you to rest now.
In all honesty, I wanted to continue talking with Kazuma for a little longer, but... You're right. I think I will then. There was still so much of the mountain that we had left to trudge through, so I needed every minute of rest that I could get. It wasn't until I gotten close enough to the bedding that I realized just how moldy and musty it was. Kazuma, do you really expect me to sleep here?
Pardon me? How many other rooms do you see?
But... As I listened carefully for any sound outside of the house, I picked up none. Not a single bird nor insect. Seemingly, the only life in the nearest mile radius was Kazuma and myself. That's right. Just us. Alone.
What's wrong? Hadn't you crawled off to sleep?
I know! Although both of us were demons, and in spite of how I had been dressed, the fact remained that Kazuma was a man, and I a woman. Here we were, the two of us, sleeping under the same roof like it was nothing. I like that she didn't have any of these thoughts with Ryoma. At all. But with Kazuma, she's like, there's a guy. I didn't want to tip Kazuma off suspiciously about my behavior, but just in case. I discreetly pulled the bedding from beside his bed towards the far corner next to the fireplace. Discreetly. No matter how sly I tried to be, Kazuma picked up on it immediately and smirked mockingly at me. Deserved.
Nice. I noticed how uncomfortably your eyes had been shifting, but now it all makes sense to me.
You have a problem with that? I mean, I am a woman. I just figured it was better to be safe than sorry. Why was he sniggering? 'Cause, I mean, if he really, really wanted to, there's nothing you could do, girl. You're screwed. He's so strong. Oh. His eyes thinned as they darted towards me. He spoke sharply, his voice just above a whisper.
Do you intend for me to make a move on you?
Of course not! My cheeks were burning, and not because of the fire.
I am simply messing with you. You take me for some boorish creep, don't you? Demons hold tradition and decorum to a high standard. Fear not, for I shall not lay a finger upon you until our marriage is finalized.
Oh, well, that's comforting. Marriage? But I have no desire to marry you.
Forget it. Just get some sleep. Tomorrow will be even more grueling. It would be in your best interest to rest.
Okay. She's ready to go fight. Like, what makes you think I want to marry you? He's like, just go to bed. Fine. Cosmo spat out harshly at me, but I knew his intentions were kind. Also, he doesn't want to hear no to his marriage proposal. So I did as he instructed and slipped tentatively into the damp, mildewy bedding. Although, it hadn't gone without saying that I was still skeptical of Cosmo. But for now, I had to trust that he wouldn't lie to me, or take advantage of me while under his custody. More than that, it was far more pertinent that I should worry about Father and Kaoru's whereabouts. I was terrified by the thought of Father's new furies mercilessly overwhelming the Shinsengumi with their savage hunger. I must do whatever it takes to stop them. I shut my eyes uneasily, falling asleep as the fire crackled hauntingly behind me. Nothing but trouble. As I awoke... Every inch of my body ached, and it felt as though I closed my eyes and opened them a second later. Oh, you still there? Did you even go to bed? Cosmo was fixed in place, sitting exactly as he had been when I first fell asleep, giving me the strangest feeling of time dilation. Yeah. Sunlight refracted through the window, illuminating the cloud of dust particles floating in the room. A sparrow brightly chirped outside. It was morning indeed. Is it morning? Moves eyes again.
Ah, you have awoken. As soon as you are ready, we will depart.
Okay. Although it felt like I hadn't slept at all. At the very least, I was able to recuperate somewhat from the previous day, just in time for another physically demanding trek. Cosmo? Did you stay up the whole night?
Well, not the whole night.
Or so Cosmo claimed, but I had another idea. It was likely he observed the fire until sunrise, stoking it quietly in anticipation of morning. Thank you.
Why are you thanking me? I do not recall doing anything to deserve your gratitude. Just hurry up and get ready. You want to find Kyoto as soon as possible, don't you?
Kazuma sneered as he spoke, swiftly exiting the room as soon as the words left his mouth. You're such a soft boy. Just be a soft boy and let her thank you. My initial impression of him was a curt, egotistical man who intimidated and murdered his foes without remorse. But perhaps there was more to him than I realized. That deep down he had a soft heart. Its tale as old as time. Ever since I became separated from the Shinsengumi, moments like these turned out to be few and far between, but I caught my lips curling into a sweet smile ever so slightly, and my chest felt warm from the inside. Oh, she's fallen!